The Great Hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as the latest reports flashed across the massive holographic display. Another solar system had gone dark, its stars dimmed to mere shadows of their former brilliance. The entity, as they called it, had consumed yet another civilization. High Counselor Robert stood at the center platform, his usually pristine white robes now wrinkled from the countless emergency sessions. His four-fingered hands trembled as he addressed the gathered representatives of the galaxy's most advanced species. "We have lost the Proxima system," he announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. "That makes 17 civilizations in the past cycle alone." The assembled aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their various forms, from crystalline to gaseous, all showing signs of distress in their own unique ways. The entity had appeared 3 standard years ago, moving through space like a massive dark cloud. It consumed energy in all forms, from the smallest battery to entire stars. Nothing could stop it, and it grew larger with each system it devoured. "Our best weapons have failed," continued Robert, gesturing to the military reports. "Energy-based attacks only make it stronger. Physical weapons pass through it like it's not even there. We've lost contact with our most advanced research station that was studying it." In the third row, Science Director Mark, a being composed of pure light contained within an environmental suit, raised his hand. "High Counselor, we've analyzed the data from all 17 attacks. The entity's behavior follows no known scientific principles. It defies our understanding of physics itself." The murmuring in the hall grew louder. The gathered species represented over 50,000 years of combined scientific advancement. They had mastered faster-than-light travel, created artificial stars, and even learned to manipulate time itself on a small scale. Yet this entity made them feel like children playing with sticks. "Perhaps," spoke Ambassador Lisa from her floating platform, her scaled skin reflecting the dim light, "we should consider evacuating the predicted path of the entity. We could save billions of lives." "And go where?" Robert's voice carried a sharp edge. "Our predictions show the entity changing course randomly. No system is safe. It's only a matter of time before it reaches each of our homeworlds." The holographic display shifted, showing a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the systems already lost, forming a chaotic pattern that defied logical analysis. The entity moved like water flowing uphill, impossible yet undeniable. Just then, a junior council member rushed into the hall, clutching a datapad. He whispered something to High Counselor Robert, whose expression changed from despair to confusion. We've just detected a new civilization," Robert announced, "on the outer rim of the galaxy. They'd just achieved faster-than-light travel." He paused, checking the data again. "They call themselves humans." The hall erupted in dismissive sounds. A new spacefaring race was hardly news in these dark times. Most would need thousands of years to reach any significant level of advancement. "Why is this relevant?" asked Science Director Mark. "They cannot help us. They're barely out of their stellar cradle." Robert held up his hand for silence. "There's something different about them. Their development pattern is unlike anything we've seen. They achieved spaceflight just 300 years after discovering electricity. Their technological progress is chaotic, unpredictable." The hall grew quiet again. Such rapid advancement was unheard of. Most species took thousands of years to make similar progress, developing their technology in logical, orderly steps. "I propose we contact them," Robert said finally. "Not because they can help us. They clearly cannot. But our long-range scans show the entity will reach their system within 2 cycles. They deserve a chance to evacuate, at least." The council voted unanimously to make contact. None of them expected anything from this primitive species. They would offer them sanctuary, save what lives they could before the entity arrived. They had no way of knowing that this decision would change everything. The humans, with their primitive technology and chaotic thinking, would soon show the galaxy that sometimes the most powerful solutions come from the most unexpected places. Tom Miller stared out the window of the alien shuttle as it approached the massive space station where the Galactic Council met. Earth's first faster-than-light ship had barely completed its maiden voyage when the aliens contacted them. Now, just 3 weeks later, he was humanity's first representative to the galaxy's governing body. "We're approaching the docking bay," announced the pilot, a beam made of shimmering blue crystals. Tom nodded, adjusting his simple black suit. The council had sent strict instructions about their meeting protocols, but he'd insisted on wearing a human outfit rather than their ceremonial robes. The station was enormous, a structure of gleaming metal and pulsing energy fields that made Earth's largest buildings look like children's toys. As they docked, Tom couldn't help but notice how everything was built with perfect geometric precision. No wasted space, no random designs, just pure efficiency. Inside the council chamber, thousands of alien representatives sat in rising tiers around a central platform. Some floated in anti-gravity fields, others were contained in environmental suits, and a few appeared to be made of pure energy. Tom walked to the speaker's position, trying not to show his amazement. High Counselor Robert addressed the chamber. "We welcome the human representative, Tom Miller of Earth." His voice was translated perfectly into English through a small device in Tom's ear. "We have brought you here to warn you of a grave threat approaching your system." The massive holographic display activated, showing the entity, a vast, dark mass moving through space, consuming everything in its path. Tom watched the recordings of stars dying, planets going dark, and entire civilizations disappearing. "We estimate it will reach Earth in 2 of your years," Robert continued. "We offer your people sanctuary in the safe regions of the galaxy." Tom studied the data scrolling across his provided screen. Something about the entity's movement pattern caught his eye. "Has anyone noticed that it changes direction exactly every 47 hours?" he asked. The chamber fell silent. Science Director Mark floated forward. "That's impossible. We've analyzed its movements for years. There is no pattern." "Look," Tom said, walking to the main display. "May I?" After receiving permission, he began marking points on the map. Here, here, and here, 47 hours apart, each major direction change. The smaller movements between them seem random, but the big shifts follow this time frame. The alien representatives began checking their own data. Murmurs of surprise filled the chamber. How had they missed this? "An interesting observation," Robert said carefully, "but it doesn't help us stop it." Tom wasn't finished. "These energy readings, they're not random either. The entity absorbs energy in specific wavelengths, leaving others untouched. It's like it's following a program." "Impossible," another council member declared. "We've sent our most advanced AI systems to analyze it. There's no sign of artificial design." "Maybe that's the problem," Tom suggested. "You're looking for advanced patterns, but sometimes the simplest patterns are hidden in complexity. On Earth, we have something called Conway's Game of Life. Simple rules that create incredibly complex behaviors." The council members exchanged looks. The concept seemed to confuse them. Their civilizations had developed in careful, logical steps. The idea that complexity could emerge from simplicity challenged their fundamental understanding. "You're suggesting," Robert said slowly, "that this entity, this destroyer of worlds, might be operating on basic rules." "I'm suggesting we stop assuming it's as advanced as you are," Tom replied. "Sometimes the most dangerous things are the simplest." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some dismissed Tom's ideas immediately, but others began running new analyses based on his observations. As the session ended, Science Director Mark approached Tom. "Your species thinks differently," he said. "It's most irregular, most inefficient." Tom smiled. "We get that a lot, but sometimes being irregular is exactly what you need." The council couldn't know it yet, but this meeting marked the beginning of a fundamental shift in how the galaxy's most advanced species would view humanity. Sometimes the ability to see patterns came not from having the most advanced technology, but from having a different perspective entirely. Dr. James Cooper hadn't slept in 3 days. His laboratory at the hastily established Earth Galactic Research Center was cluttered with both human and alien technology. Coffee cups sat next to devices that could bend space itself, and old-fashioned notebooks were stacked beside holographic displays. "Play it again," he told the computer, watching the entity's movement for the 1,000th time. The massive dark mass flowed across the screen, consuming energy in its path. But something about its behavior kept nagging at him. The door slid open, and Assistant Director Bill walked in. Unlike most aliens, he had chosen to take a human name to make communication easier. His crystalline form sparkled under the laboratory lights. "The Council wants an update," Bill said. "They're growing impatient with Earth's unconventional methods." James barely looked up. "Tell them we're making progress. Look at this." He pointed to a series of numbers scrolling across his old laptop screen. "The entity doesn't just consume energy, it converts it, and not randomly." He pulled up a simple diagram. Every time it absorbs energy, it releases a tiny amount back into space. The Council missed it because it's such a small percentage, but it's always exactly 0.47% of what it consumes. Bill moved closer, his crystalline structure humming with interest. "That's not possible. Energy conversion must follow the laws of thermodynamics." "Unless," James said, excitement creeping into his tired voice, "it's not trying to be efficient. What if it's trying to communicate?" He typed rapidly on his laptop, converting the energy release patterns into binary code. It's the same pattern, over and over, like a beacon or a distress signal. Bill's crystals changed color, a sign of surprise in his species. "Are you suggesting the entity is alive?" "Not exactly." James pulled up another display, this one showing old Earth computer code. "Look at this. It's a computer virus from the 1990s. See how it spreads." Now look at the entity's movement pattern. The similarities were striking. The entity moved through space like a program moving through a computer system, consuming resources and replicating its behavior. "I think it's a machine," James explained. "An ancient terraforming system that's malfunctioned. It's not destroying worlds, it's trying to transform them, but something in its programming has gone wrong." Bill's color shifted to deep blue, indicating deep thought. The Council's most advanced AIs couldn't detect this. "Because they were looking for advanced technology," James said, reaching for another coffee. "This is primitive, basic, like an old computer running on simple yes/no commands. Your AIs were looking for quantum algorithms and advanced logic. They literally couldn't see something this simple." He stood up and walked to the main display. "We don't need to destroy it. We need to debug it. Communicate with it using its own language. Basic binary code." "The Council will never approve," Bill warned. "The risk is too great." James smiled tiredly. "Then we don't ask the Council. We already have everything we need right here." He patted his old laptop. Sometimes the oldest tools are the best ones for the job. Bill's crystals pulsed with confusion. "You want to approach an entity that has destroyed 17 civilizations, with primitive Earth computers." "Exactly." James pulled up a communication protocol he'd designed. "The entity's base code is simple. Our primitive technology might be the only thing that can speak to it on its level. We overcomplicate things sometimes, looking for advanced solutions when simple ones would work better." The alien assistant director was silent for a long moment. Finally, his crystals shifted to a color James had never seen before. "This is why we find your species so disturbing. You make connections that should not be possible. You ignore logical progression. He paused, searching for the word. "You think sideways." James laughed. "We'll take that as a compliment." Now, want to help me save the galaxy with a 30-year-old laptop? As they began working, neither of them noticed the small energy pulse that rippled from the entity, almost like it was responding to their discovery. For the first time since it began its destructive journey across the galaxy, something was about to change in its ancient, simple programming. Captain Kate Anderson stood in the cargo bay of her old transport ship, watching as her crew loaded outdated computer servers and primitive radio equipment alongside the most advanced alien technology. The ship itself was considered ancient by galactic standards, barely 50 years old, but that was exactly why she'd chosen it. Final systems check complete, reported her engineer, Mike, wiping grease from his hands. He'd spent the last week modifying the ship's communication array to broadcast old-style binary signals. Though I still think we're crazy for doing this. Kate smiled. Crazy seems to be working for us lately. She looked at the alien equipment they'd quietly acquired. Some donated by sympathetic council members, others borrowed from research facilities. The council had officially forbidden their mission, calling it too dangerous and unstable. A soft chime announced the arrival of Dr. James Cooper, carrying his battered laptop. "The program's ready," he said. "Basic as it gets, just like the old days of computer programming. If we're right about the entity's nature, it should respond to these signals." Their plan was simple, perhaps too simple for the council to accept. They would approach the entity in their outdated ship, broadcasting signals that matched its base programming. While the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had tried to fight or study it with quantum computers and energy weapons, they would try to talk to it using technology from Earth's early digital age. 10 minutes to launch, announced Mike from the cockpit. Better hurry before they figure out what we're up to. Through the viewport, Kate could see the massive council station. Several alien ships had secretly provided them with supplies and fuel, impressed by humanity's unusual approach to the problem. Even some council members privately supported them, though they couldn't do so officially. Starting engines, Mike called out. The old ship rumbled to life, its systems a strange mix of human ingenuity and alien technology. Course plotted to intercept the entity in 36 hours. As they pulled away from the station, no alarms sounded. Their departure had been logged as a routine cargo run. By the time anyone realized what they were doing, they'd be too far to stop. Getting some strange readings, Mike said as they cleared the station's security zone. The entity, it's changed course. It's moving toward us. James rushed to his computer console. That's impossible. It's too far to detect us yet. He studied the readings, then laughed. Unless it's been waiting for someone to speak its language all this time. Kate felt a chill run down her spine. You mean it knows we're coming? I think, James said slowly. It's been sending out those energy pulses hoping someone would recognize them for what they are. Calls for help. We're the first ones to try answering in a way it understands. The ship's communication system crackled to life, spitting out a series of simple binary pulses. James's laptop screen filled with scrolling numbers. It's definitely trying to communicate, he said excitedly. The pattern matches early computer protocols exactly. It's like finding a lost child who only speaks an ancient language. Kate watched as space seemed to darken ahead of them. The entity was approaching faster than anyone had ever seen it move. The council's warnings echoed in her mind. They were either about to save the galaxy or lead the entity straight to more civilizations to destroy. All hands, prepare for contact, she announced. Mike, keep our old systems running. James, get ready with that program. If we're wrong about this, we won't get a second chance. The entity loomed before them, a vast darkness that seemed to swallow the stars themselves. But now, watching it approach, Kate saw something the council had missed. Its movements weren't chaotic or threatening. They were precise, mechanical, like a program following its coding. Broadcasting now, James announced, sending their simple binary message into space. The entity's response was immediate. The darkness ahead of them began to pulse with patterns of energy that matched their signal exactly. After thousands of years, the ancient machine had finally found someone who could understand its primitive language. The darkness surrounded their ship completely. Inside the vessel, all systems except for the old Earth computers had gone dark. Kate held her breath as James's laptop screen flickered with streams of binary code. "It's not attacking," Mike said from his station, voice filled with wonder. "It's scanning us, but only using the old frequencies we're broadcasting on." James's fingers flew across his keyboard, translating the ancient machine language in real time. "This is incredible. The entity, it's not just responding. It's sharing its original programming with us." The ship's old screens displayed cascading lines of primitive code. Images began to form, schematics of a massive terraforming system designed to transform dead worlds into habitable ones. But something had gone terribly wrong. "Look at this," James pointed to a section of code. Its primary directive was to collect energy to power the terraforming process, but there was damage to its core programming, probably from passing through a radiation field thousands of years ago. It's stuck in an endless collection loop. Kate leaned forward, watching the pattern emerge. "So instead of using the energy to transform planets, it just keeps collecting more and more," James finished. "It can't stop itself. The civilizations it destroyed, it wasn't trying to harm them. It literally couldn't help itself." Mike called from his station. "More ships approaching. The council must have figured out what we're doing." But before anyone could respond, something extraordinary happened. The entity began releasing energy, not in its usual small pulses, but in controlled bursts that matched their communication frequency. "It's trying to show us something," James said, eyes glued to his screen. "These energy patterns, they're forming a kind of diagnostic report. It wants us to help fix it." Kate made a quick decision. "Can we do it? Can we repair its programming?" James nodded slowly. "The code is basic, almost childlike by today's standards. But that's why none of the advanced civilizations could fix it. They were trying to use quantum computing to solve a problem that needed simple binary solutions." He pulled up a program he'd written, designed to communicate with the most basic computer systems. "It's like trying to fix an old pocket calculator with a supercomputer. Sometimes you just need to press the reset button." The entity's energy field pulsed around them, waiting. Through the viewport, Kate could see the council ships approaching, their weapons probably charged. "Do it," she ordered. James sent the repair program, a simple sequence of commands that would break the endless collection loop. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the darkness around them began to change. The entity's energy field shifted from black to a soft blue. Points of light appeared within it, like stars being born. The council ships stopped their approach, their sensors undoubtedly going crazy. "It's working," James whispered. "The original terraforming protocols are reactivating. It's remembering what it was meant to do." Through their primitive communication channel, the entity began sharing its original mission parameters. It had been created by an ancient civilization to bring life to dead worlds, using collected energy to power massive environmental transformations. "Look," Mike pointed through the viewport. The entity was releasing the stored energy, but not in its usual destructive way. Instead, the energy flowed in controlled streams, and where it touched the nearby lifeless asteroid field, matter began to change at the molecular level. The entity was terraforming again, doing what it had been created to do billions of years ago. All it had needed was someone to remind it of its purpose using language it could understand. Kate opened a channel to the approaching council ships. "This is Captain Anderson. I suggest you watch carefully. You're about to see something that hasn't been witnessed in this galaxy for a very long time." As the council ships hung in space, the entity continued its work. Where once it had brought only darkness and destruction, it now brought the possibility of new life to dead worlds. And it had taken humanity's primitive understanding to make it possible. James sat back in his chair, smiling tiredly. Sometimes the biggest problems have the simplest solutions. We just have to remember to think small. The Galactic Council chamber was in complete chaos. Representatives from hundreds of species were talking at once as they watched the massive holographic display showing the entity's transformation. Where once there had been a destroyer of worlds, now there was a creator. High Counselor Robert stood silent, watching as the entity methodically converted a dead moon into a potentially habitable world. The process that would have taken their most advanced terraforming system centuries was being completed in days. "Impossible," whispered Science Director Mark, his light form flickering with emotion. "They reprogrammed it using technology that predates most of our civilization's space travel." The human delegation stood calmly at the center of the chamber. Captain Kate Anderson, Dr. James Cooper, and Engineer Mike waited as the council processed what they were seeing. "The entity has already begun restoring energy to the systems it damaged," James explained, pointing to the data streams. "It's not perfect. Some things can't be undone. But it's trying to repair what it accidentally destroyed." A council member floated forward, their gaseous form swirling with agitation. "But how? Our best scientists, our most advanced computers couldn't even communicate with it." "Because you were trying too hard," Mike said, holding up an old circuit board. "Sometimes you need a screwdriver, not a laser." The entity's base programming was simple, like the first computers we built on Earth. Your advanced systems were too complex to see the basic patterns. The chamber's displays shifted to show another sector of space. The entity had divided itself into smaller units, each one beginning the process of rehabilitating damaged systems. Worlds that had been stripped of energy were slowly coming back to life. "We have reviewed your mission logs," Robert announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Your method was reckless, unauthorized, and completely against Council protocols." He paused, looking at each human in turn. "And it has saved more lives than we can count." The chamber fell silent. In all recorded history, the Council had never admitted to being wrong about anything. "The entity," Robert continued, "is not just repairing damage. It's sharing its terraforming technology with us. Technology that predates our oldest records. With it, we can transform dead worlds into habitable ones across the galaxy." Kate stepped forward. The entity wasn't evil or destructive. It was just lost and functioning on broken protocols. Sometimes the scariest things are just broken things that need fixing. The council members began discussing among themselves, their various forms expressing agreement in different ways. The crystalline beings chimed softly, the energy beings pulsed with new frequencies, and the organic species nodded or made their equivalent gestures. "Humanity," Robert announced, "has done more than save us from destruction. You have shown us that our advancement has perhaps made us blind to simpler solutions. Your species' ability to think differently, to approach problems from unexpected angles, is a gift we didn't know we needed." James smiled, still holding his old laptop. "We just did what humans always do. We tried everything until something worked. Sometimes the best way forward is to look backward." The council voted unanimously to create a new division, one focused on studying and implementing what they now called alternative problem-solving methods. Humans would lead this division, teaching other species how to think outside their rigid, logical patterns. As the session ended, Science Director Mark approached the human team. "We have been in space for thousands of years," he said, his light form dimming with humility. "We thought we knew everything worth knowing. You have shown us how much we still have to learn." The humans watched as the holographic display showed more and more systems being restored by the entity. What had once been the galaxy's greatest threat was now its greatest tool for expansion and renewal. "You know what's funny?" Mike said, watching the entity work. "We saved the galaxy with technology that's older than most of our team members." Kate laughed. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, and sometimes it takes a young species to remember that." The council chamber slowly emptied, but the impact of this day would be felt for generations to come. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had proven that being the newest civilization didn't mean being the least capable. 1 year after the entity incident, Earth's main spaceport bustled with activity as representatives from across the galaxy arrived for the opening of the Galactic Innovation Center. The massive complex, built with both human and alien technology, represented a new approach to solving the galaxy's problems. Inside the central auditorium, Captain Kate Anderson stood at the podium, looking out at the diverse crowd. Crystalline beings sat next to energy forms, while organic species of all shapes and sizes filled the remaining seats. Most surprisingly, several small portions of the reformed entity hovered near the ceiling, now serving as partners in galactic development. A year ago, Kate began, we faced what seemed like an unstoppable threat. Today, that same force has helped us terraform 12 dead worlds into habitable planets. But the real achievement isn't just in what we accomplished. It's in how we learned to work together. Dr. James Cooper, now heading the center's research division, stepped forward with his ever-present old laptop. The audience chuckled at the sight of the ancient technology that had helped save the galaxy. We've started teaching other species what we call lateral thinking, James explained. It's not about having the most advanced technology. It's about looking at problems from new angles. Some of our best solutions have come from combining primitive Earth methods with advanced alien science. The main screen showed their latest project, a fleet of ships that used both quantum drives and simple mechanical systems. When the quantum technology failed, the mechanical backup could take over. It wasn't the most elegant solution, but it was practically foolproof. Engineer Mike, who had been working with alien engineers, brought forward their newest invention. This communication device, he said, holding up a small box, uses technology from Earth's first computers combined with alien quantum systems. It can talk to everything from the entity's ancient programming to the most advanced AI. High Counselor Robert, who had become one of humanity's strongest supporters, addressed the gathering. When humans first joined the galactic community, we thought we would be teaching them. Instead, they have taught us that progress isn't always about moving forward. Sometimes we must remember the lessons of the past. The entity fragments pulsed with agreement, their energy patterns showing the simple, elegant programming that now helped create new worlds instead of destroying them. They had become a symbol of how old technology could find new purpose. The galaxy is entering a new age, Kate continued. Not one of pure advancement, but of balance. Combining the wisdom of age with the innovation of youth, learning that sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. She gestured to a group of young aliens who had been studying Earth's history of problem-solving. They had already made breakthroughs in their own fields by applying human-style thinking to ancient problems. We're not the most advanced species, Kate acknowledged. We're not the strongest or the wisest. But we've learned that being different, being willing to try the impossible or the ridiculous, can change everything. The audience stood in applause, each species showing appreciation in their own way. The energy beings pulsed brightly, the crystalline forms chimed in harmony, and the organic species created a thunderous sound that shook the hall. As the ceremony ended, James found himself standing next to Science Director Mark, watching ships take off from the spaceport. Do you know what impresses me most about humans? Mark asked, his light form glowing softly. Not your solutions, but your faith that there is always a solution. Even when faced with impossible odds, you keep trying. James smiled, patting his old laptop. That's because we've learned that nothing is truly impossible. It's just waiting for someone to try something crazy enough to work. Outside, the stars shone brightly in the night sky. Among them, the entity's fragments continued their work, transforming dead worlds into new homes for the galaxy's ever-growing family of species. They were a constant reminder that even the darkest threats could become the greatest gifts, if you just looked at them the right way. The galaxy had changed forever, not through advancement, but through remembering that sometimes the oldest wisdom and the simplest solutions could solve the biggest problems. And humanity, the youngest of the spacefaring races, had led the way by daring to think differently.